Have you rated and reviewed Marijuana Today daily and our weekly podcast, Marijuana Today, on iTunes yet? Just search for the term marijuana on iTunes and let us know how we're doing. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Wednesday, December 20th, 2017, and you're tuned in to episode 397 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. Our top story of the day is a piece by Tom Angel over at Forbes on a purported change in policy within the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs regarding how VA doctors should handle discussions around medical marijuana with their military patients. Tom picked up on a 5-page memo circulated earlier this month within the VA, telling doctors that they were free to discuss medical marijuana with inquiring patients, but reminding them that they were barred from actually recommending medical cannabis, even in states where it's legal. Tom's article on Forbes does a nice job of providing background on this one, so I'd recommend opening it up for the full read. Our second top story of the day is the denial by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs that the 5-page memo highlighted by Tom over at Forbes is an actual change to their policy. The Air Force Times spoke with VA spokesman Kurt Cashore, who said that the memo was, quote, updated guidance to encourage veterans to let their VA physicians know if they're using marijuana for medicinal or recreational purposes, just as VA physicians would want to know about any other use by military patients of federally illegal drugs, unquote. Mr. Cashore went on to say, quote, VA physicians can also gather statistics and other information from veterans about their use of marijuana or other federally illegal drugs as part of understanding the effects of that drug use on their overall health. VA's position on marijuana remains unchanged, unquote. Our final top story of the day brings us north to Canada, where the results of a new poll conducted by Health Canada were released yesterday, showing that cannabis consumers aren't super concerned about the dangers of driving while under the influence of marijuana. According to the findings of the Canadian Cannabis Survey, just half of polled marijuana users think their cannabis use affects their driving, compared to 75% of non-users. A full 19% say cannabis use doesn't impede their driving at all, while 14% aren't sure. This is one of our industry's tougher nuts to crack, as there isn't a clear connection between cannabis use and impaired driving, especially when you look at how clear the relationship is between drinking alcohol and a degraded ability to safely operate a moving vehicle. This is another good one to open up for the full read. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, the MJ Today Media patron listeners, those generous supporters who help ensure our survival and thrival with ongoing monthly contributions. We're coming up on episode 400 here on the Daily, which means that I've reported on nearly 4,000 of the most important headlines in the legal cannabis industry. And with an average day starting with 500 headlines to sort through to find the 10 most important stories, that means that I've scanned 200,000 headlines in the course of producing all of our shows so far. That's 200,000 headlines that you didn't have to scan. Isn't that worth your monthly support? How many headlines have I saved you from? If you'd like to help keep the lights on here at MJ Today Media with your ongoing patronage, just open up mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. You hear me say it every show. Make today the day you join in. One more time, that's mjtodaydaily.com, big blue button. All right, time for the blitz. The state of New Hampshire is formally debating the merits of legalizing adult use marijuana via a special legislative commission that met on Monday to talk over possible scenarios for tax collection. If the granted state taxed adult use cannabis like Colorado does, it could bring in just over $40 million in revenue. The New Hampshire Commission also heard testimony via Skype from former Colorado marijuana czar Andrew Freeman, who warned of the dangers of unregulated homegrow. The state of Pennsylvania just announced that they were approving 2 new licensed cultivators for their nascent medical marijuana industry, bringing the total number of approved growers to 6. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau offered some clarification yesterday on when he wants to see nationwide adult use legalization implemented. In an interview with TVA News in Quebec, Prime Minister Trudeau said that despite reports of him wanting it to be done by July 1st, quote, next summer, unquote, is when he thought it reasonable. Bart Shainman over at Marijuana Business Daily has a good piece up looking at the possible scenarios of California wholesale cannabis selling for $500 a pound. As Bart sees it, certain factors in California's markets should keep prices for wholesale cannabis on the higher side for the foreseeable future, but that the overall trend is going to be down. Another good one to open up in full. Another good story to digest fully is a piece published by KQED on the phenomenon of marijuana industry workers joining unions. The story looks at one dispensary in Sacramento, California, whose owner was actually the driving agent for the unionization of his workers. Swing on over to this one. Alaska's chief medical officer just released a statement to hospitals and health facilities around the state saying that women who use marijuana should be encouraged to continue breastfeeding their babies. Dr. Jay Butler said in his memo that consuming marijuana while pregnant was to be avoided if possible, but that there wasn't much evidence warning of the dangers of breastfeeding as a cannabis consumer, as long as babies are protected from secondhand smoke. And finally for today, Marijuana Business Daily has news of some personnel changes at the National Cannabis Industry Association. Stepping down from the NCIA's board of directors is Kayvan Kalabari, a well-known Denver activist and entrepreneur who says he's leaving to focus on running to become the mayor of Denver. NCIA is also letting go of Jennifer Murray, who was hired as chief of staff just a couple of months ago. There aren't many details out yet regarding the changes, though Kalabari did hint that there's more to the story. We'll keep an eye on this one for sure. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, the MJ Today Media patrons, and to all of our awesome patron listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the lesser ranks of the patron listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with Marijuana Today.
One take, Shay. One take.